So how do you feel, just out of curiosity, since you've been around the block a time or two?
Got the scars to prove it.
Yeah. So how do you feel like today's sort of economy and climate match up to what you went through in 2007? Because they're obviously very different.
Yeah.
But do you feel like we're on the verge of something? Do you feel like we're on the verge of a quote unquote soft landing? Like where's your head at with like the current economy?
It definitely feels different. Like going into 2007, there's a lot of building now, but there's a lot more building then. Like I still feel like we're like, the thing that was like the really big signpost for me then when I look back now was how many single family houses that were built in my area. There was just like subdivisions everywhere that were underway. And there were condo buildings in Florida on every corner, you know? So like it was a major overbuilding in that time. Now we could get there in the next year or two. Like there's a lot of building going on, but the numbers I see is there's still pretty strong demand. The demand curve is
that's
there.
what it seems like. I mean,
yeah.
It's hard to fathom, and I know it's not like just as simple as, I'm oversimplifying it here, but like people screaming from the rooftop of like the housing shortage and the lack of housing.
Yeah.
But then we're also building a lot, and there's too much supply. But at the end of the day, it seems like there's not enough supply for in a lot of these cities. Like I used to live in LA. I lived there for 5 years. Dude, it's like the supply there is like there's nothing there. It hasn't changed at all.
I think it's going to be localized oversupplies, but if you look at the big picture, LA has structural issues that are going to never allow there to be enough housing. Zoning, NIMBYs,
zoning is a big one.
You know, not my backyard. So it's just there's so many uphill battles, and you know, politics as they are. The one thing I know is that local politics is hard to get developments approved. It's so difficult. So if that's the case, if you're an existing housing owner in one of those locations where it's hard to build new construction, you're basically buying something that's short on supply. For better or worse, we can argue whether that's a good thing for society. I don't think it is. I think we should build more. But as a real estate investor, our strategy is to buy places with limited supply that have high demand. So even in LA, like man, if you're buying a really good location and you have a property that cash flows today, chances are, and that if LA continues to have a good economy and the Hollywood's still there and all these things that make LA, good. It's gonna be good over the long run. Same with Atlanta, Georgia. Same with New York City. Like all these big economic hubs around the country, like you're good. And it's also going to be tough to build over the next 10, 20 years. So I'm bullish. I think there could be ups and downs. That's why I think you should have good cash reserves to kind of go through those storms. But next 10, 20 years, I'm very bullish on what we got.
I'm pretty bullish too. I would say the one market that I'm in that I've seen is Austin.
Yeah.
Austin was a crazy market there because during the pandemic, people were offering like $200,000 over asking.
Right.
People were just paying gobs of money to move there, and then now you're seeing those price cuts.
Sure.
It's really the only city that I've seen in my kind of portfolio where you're just like, oh yeah, okay, the equity's dead there a little bit.
It makes sense, but I think it's also going to be the one. I mean, tell me, because you know Austin pretty well. What are the fundamentals that make Austin awesome? Like, what has that changed?
Well, I will say kind of back then we had a lot of tech companies moving in. We had a lot of big companies moving in and basically paying relocation packages and all this stuff. And so people were coming in saying like, okay, like I'm moving here for this huge job.
Right.
Tech is moving in. I'm going to pay the extra $200,000 because I'm making a lot of money. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And then a lot of those companies, from my understanding, have moved out.
Right.
And then tech is also taking a bit of a haircut right now. And so I think everyone's just trying to get out. But the problem is, they can't get out that easily because they overbought the properties.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and the answer might be Austin's in trouble, but like the next 10 years, 20 years, like the things that I understand to make, as an outsider looking at Austin, the attractiveness of doing business in Texas, the attractiveness of being in a big college town that's also the capital of the state, the fact that it's just got a vibe and a culture that's different, like it's just hard to replicate in Austin, right? When I see a place like that, I think like more of a short-term opportunity when you have these people with upside down and negative equity. It's like it's a supply shock, but is the long-term demand of why people move to Austin changing? Like I don't know. Like it's an open question. It's an open question.
It's still a great city. So for sure, fundamentally, I think Austin is always going to be a cool place to live.
Yeah.
I just think we're in this weird stalemate where everyone wants to live there, and then everyone that has the houses doesn't want to cut their prices. So for the first time, like you go onto Zillow, you go onto Redfin, you type in owner financing, creative finance, subject to.
People are willing to do it.
And, oh my God, dude, they're everywhere. There's dozens and dozens.
Isn't
and
that
dozens
interesting?
It is, yeah. So and the deal I have out there is a creative deal. It really only would have worked as a creative deal. Like if I had bought that property, I don't think it would have worked really. So, so you're kind of bullish overall on real estate, but you want to still kind of have these cash reserves, maybe be a little bit more on the conservative side. I want to go back a little bit on sort of the strategy here of acquiring a property every single year. Because I actually think there's a few powerful ways to do this. Me and David Green, back in our Bigger Pocket heyday, we called this the sneaky rental strategy. Are you familiar with this?
So we owner-occupy a property? I love it.
You go in, you buy a property for 3.5% down. It's an FHA loan, whatever. And you live in it for a year. And then after a year, you go and you put 3% down on the next property and you move into that one. And if you want to supercharge it, you house hack. But the idea is you buy one property for 3% down every single year for 5 years, and you keep moving as long as you're willing to do that. And at the end of the day, the reason that strategy is so beautiful is because 3% of 200,000 or 300, wherever you live. Every time I say a number like 200,000, comments are like, wow, he must live in the middle of nowhere. Let's say 400,000.
Yeah, whatever.
3% of 400,000 is, let's see, 40,000 is 10%, 20 is 5. So like $15,000 to buy a $400,000 house. That to me seems very achievable, and it doesn't require you going out and saving $80,000 for a 20% down payment. How do you feel about that? Because that's kind of like really going levered and putting very little down, and it actually is a lot of the times, a lot of the people who don't have equity find themselves in a tough spot because they can't sell the house that they got to relocate within a year and stuff like that.
I mean, I'm with you and David. I love the owner-occupied to rental strategy. I think if you could do that 3, 4, 5 times and get your 5 rentals, that's awesome. I think the only challenge would be just like the rental cash flow on top of your mortgage. Like, I think if you wait long enough, it's going to work. Like
I see. So it may not necessarily cash flow
right off the bat, right? Because you're highly leveraged, because your payment's bigger. But like I think if you
and PMI.
Yeah, but maybe you mix that with another strategy. Maybe you say like, I'm going to do that every 2 or 3 years. I'm going to live there. I'm going to wait for the rents to catch up. I'm going to do something to the property. Like maybe you have a strategy like we teach is that you have, you're going to cosmetically improve the property. Maybe you're going to build an ADU on the property with, you're going to put some sweat equity in it. Maybe there's a, wing of the house that you can like turn into an ADU and not the, 15, 20 grand of your own, sweat equity or something. Like if you can like do something to the property to force the rent to be higher, then it's beautiful. It's even better because then you can then move after a year and still have some cash flow coming in. So like, I think if you combine strategies like 3.5% down, perfect. You're getting in the door, and then do something creative with this property to make more cash flow, and then keep it as a rental instead of selling it. Like
that's a good way to think about it. I've done that a few times. My LA property was a 2-1, and underneath there's this 279 square foot bonus space.
Right.
That was really gross when we moved in. So we remodeled it. I'd spent $3,000 remodeling it over 3 months. Every night I'd come home from work at it was LA, so I probably got home at 7 just because of the traffic.
Yes.
And I'd go and give my wife a little kiss, and then I'd go to Home Depot and I'd buy a Red Bull and sour cream and cheddar chips and whatever my supplies were. That was my dinner for 3 months straight, and then I would go into that studio and fix everything. And it was really cool, but as a result, I went from having this uninhabitable place to this place that made $2,000 to $3,000 a month in basically cash flow, and that was awesome. And then I was like, man, how do I do that again? And I built an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, in the backyard. And then that brings in $2,000 to $3,000 a month too. So between those two things, I was living mortgage free. And it was a really, really, I think it's just, for me, I love this idea of you buy these properties, you cosmetically add to it, or you add some type of revenue stream, and then you figure out how to get your mortgage or your rent down to zero. I think that's really the first thing that every investor should do. Absolutely. Is how do you get to zero? Because the moment you can start stacking that $2,000 a month that you would pay in rent, dude, I think your financial journey kind of just compounds from there. Hey, by the way, if you liked this conversation, I've got good news for you. There's way more where that came from. If you want to watch the whole thing, click right here.